right. I believe this means we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions, welcome to another Monday morning tech chat show on the SGGQA podcast channel. I am Juan Carlos Bagnell, some gadget guy, the SGG of this terribly named podcast, and the QA stands for question and answer because we like to make this an interactive discussion when we broadcast live. I like to host my podcast on a Monday morning so that we can kind of digest the news of the last week, anything that might have broke over the weekend, and start our tech week off right. I'm already seeing a phenomenal lineup of folks in the live chat. Abraham Artemis, Matt Tyler, Gary the Fireman, Kiwi Mad Dog 420, LFA Reviews. Did I miss anyone? I don't think I missed anyone so far, but we've got a jam-packed show. We've got lots of news to cover. We got a little tech and politics. We've got a little gadgets. We've got a little Microsoft coming back into mobile, and we're going to have a lot of housekeeping. I'm definitely not making my estimate, my over-under on housekeeping this week. Hey, Jim72165, welcome to the live stream. So here's the deal. 2 weeks ago, if you remember on the podcast, I wasn't feeling super great. I was starting to get a little, just a little scratchy. That blew up into a full-on head cold. And then somewhere around, I think it was Wednesday of that week, on the hottest section of that week, our air conditioner blew out. So we had to get our air conditioner like almost completely like refurbished. I don't know how air conditioners work. I'm a gadget nerd. I'm super bad at like home appliances. So that also took me out of commission for a couple days. Last week was all about catch up. So if we jump into housekeeping now, hey, Charlie Spirit Song, quick shout out. Charlie Spirit Song has been doing an amazing job. Just I tried to combine amazing and incredible in an amazable job of putting in time codes for this podcast on YouTube. So if you're watching the replay after the fact, Charlie has been doing just incredible work, amazable work, just like stapling all this stuff together. And he's even been including links so that when you see the time code, there's also a link to the story that we're talking about. I can't thank him enough. I literally do not have the time to go back over my own rambling podcast. And he has been, he's just been doing amazable work for this community and trying to make the show even more watchable and easier to work with. So everyone, huge shout out. He's an awesome dude. And again, I cannot thank him enough. That is such a huge load off of my production for this podcast. Okay. So, last week was all about catch up. I had numerous videos, a second podcast. I was a podcast guest on another podcast. I got a lot of work done, and this week is also going to be similarly full. You know, I've been teasing like, oh, I've got this product. I want to talk about these headphones. A lot of this stuff is finally getting wrapped up and getting finished. Minutes before this podcast went live, I finished my review of the LG V50, so that's going to be out on this channel. I'm playing with those Audio-Technica wireless gaming headset. That's going to be out on this channel. I have a video going up this afternoon about Creative's refresh for their true wireless earbuds. There's a lot going on. So here, let's jump into some housekeeping. This was what went on last week. And again, I'm totally assuming that none of you got notified on YouTube about any of it. All right. So, oh, great. My screen share is just focusing on the chat. Hold on one second. Like I said, I am nothing if not consistently silly. There we go. And let's fix there. Okay. So first up, Helm Audio True Wireless 5 review. The Helm TW5, this was a brand that was very highly requested for me to talk about true wireless earbuds. The Helm folks sent out a pair of their TW5s, which came out, I want to say, the beginning of August. And I spent a couple weeks just kind of jamming them into my skull. And it's an exciting turning point for true wireless earbuds. I'm still a little cranky about true wireless and disposability and battery life. But if you were shopping a true cut the cable kind of solution, what I think we can learn from something like the TW5 is that it's not just is this better than that? Are these better than AirPods? Are these worse than AirPods? It's about finding the right color tuning, the right fit, the right features, and now we have variety. And now we have enough competition in this market to help consumers pick a solution that's really right for them and not just is it good? Is it gooder or badder than someone else's true wireless? Moving right along. This was my secondary podcast, but we're going to be spending some time in the second half of this show talking about the Microsoft Surface event. Tons of Surfaces were announced, but I think the gadgets and the products that were announced for 2020 absolutely stole the show, and I think that's what we're going to be focusing on this for this podcast, the Duo and the Neo. So, but if you want my legit, I was so excited by what they announced that I wasn't planning on doing a podcast, but went ahead and did a live stream anyway. You can catch the recap on that. Then scrolling back down, we had a pair of OnePlus 7T videos. And it's always one of the things I like taking a look back at. When a new phone comes out, I want to see if it lives up to manufacturers' claims. And I also really want to do a better job of looking at how manufacturers sort of have supported their products over that year, and are they really an upgrade when we get the new phone? So I think it's the highest praise I can deliver to a manufacturer is their new phone really is worthy of a 1-year upgrade. And it's very rare that you can just across the board say, yes, this phone is so much better, you should flip your old phone and get this new phone. But when it comes to the OnePlus 6T to the OnePlus 7T, we're now talking about a slightly more aggressive price-performance ratio. There is more room to iterate, to improve, to refine. The OnePlus 6T is still a screamer. In fact, if you have a OnePlus 6T, you're still largely in the territory of an Exynos Note 10. That performance ratio compares very well where OnePlus focuses on making these hot rod phones. You can hang with the non-Qualcomm Samsung Galaxies. It's pretty close. So looking at the OnePlus 7T, we see a number of improvements. We see a lot of refinement, a completely different camera strategy. Is that enough for someone to consider flipping a phone, which is still an absolute monster performer? And that's what that video takes a look at. And then immediately following that up, a lot of the commentary on the OnePlus 7T has sort of bordered on, this is the real OnePlus. Now, who needs a Pro? The OnePlus 7 Pro, well, that's way too expensive. So I also wanted to take a look at those claims, and I also wanted to take a look at, if you had a OnePlus 7 Pro, how does it compare against a OnePlus 7T? I'm not impressed by big bar graphs and performance claims. It's up to this Qualcomm Snapdragon 855 Plus is up to 15% faster than the 855. This is something I got into a conversation last night on Twitter with some folks because of an Apple fanboy that got real cranky on my OnePlus 7T videos. I'm getting very, I'm exhausted. I'm very tired of single feature or single spec smartphone fans. One of the manufacturers who was brought up in this sort of ongoing conversation last year were Poco phone fans. It's got the Snapdragon 845. That's it. Game over. And that's, a car is not its engine. A phone is not its processor. The entire experience needs to be weighed and balanced. So for a lot of folks, pointing to the OnePlus 7T is, it's got the faster processor. That game over. Game over 7 Pro. There is so much more that goes into comparing two devices, even from the same manufacturer. OnePlus isn't, completely cannibalizing their own market here. There are granular differences between these two handsets that can weigh on what it is that, we're trying to accomplish. Whoops. I just lost my screen share. There we go. Now we're back. Sorry, that just borked my chat and everything. It wouldn't be a Monday morning tech chat show without some calamity. And VGU Sesco on Mixer, thanks for tuning in. But again, getting back to this little bit of housekeeping, we're looking at the OnePlus 7T versus the OnePlus 7 Pro. Performance claims don't matter much outside of synthetic benchmarks as far as I'm concerned. I put them up against each other in a video rendering test. I'm looking at frames per second in a very graphically demanding game, a game that makes the 855 struggle. If you've ever fired up Bright Ridge, you can turn up quality settings that make modern phones cry. This is such a demanding title. I mean, like, really, bit for bit, and we're only talking about a $70 to $100 price difference. It's not so cut and dry, and especially for folks who just recently got a OnePlus 7 Pro. I'm frustrated by a conversation that makes it sound like the 7 Pro is obsolete because the 7T has arrived. They're different products for different demographics. $100 separates them, but even just down to storage, because you can't add a memory card to a OnePlus, twice the storage in that $100 price difference, 2 million more pixels on the display, no notch, the engineering around the motorized selfie camera. I think it still has the better performing fingerprint sensor on the 7 Pro versus the 7T. I mean, all of these little things could stack up to something that it's still absolutely worth that $100 price nexus. And there are no mentions of things. Like, if you watch a OnePlus 7T review, and they casually mention that the 7 Pro, I mean, why would you buy it? And they don't talk about liquid cooling. Because this, as far as I know, the 7T does not employ the thermal hardware that the 7 Pro does. So when I'm in the middle of my, and I show this on camera, when I'm in the middle of my video rendering test, the 7T screams ahead early on, but then the 7 Pro catches it and beats it in a test of what would be kind of hardcore usage of a mobile CPU. And I wonder why that would be. If the OnePlus 7T is 15% more powerful, can it sustain that 15% power bump when things start getting hot? Now I got a video where I can show that off for you guys. Matt Tyler, but it doesn't have an attachable fan. Matt Tyler is in our SomeGadgetGuy Patreon Discord. He's rocking an ROG2, and he's very proud of his ROG2. And I really wish I could spend a little more time with an ROG2 because it sounds like a monster phone. But yeah, again, it's not just a, well, just use what you like kind of conversation. Reviewers should actually be digging into some of these performance claims and examining them with a more critical eye than just, well, Qualcomm said, so I guess that's what it is. And now 7T's better. 7T's better because it has the 855 plus. Because it's the 855 plus. Game over, 7 Pro. I'm not impressed. No, actually use this stuff. All right, back into, again, another thing that I get cranky about, jumping back into housekeeping. LG, the darling whipping boy of the internet, they've refreshed their entire line of tone neckbands. I know I started this housekeeping off talking about true wireless. We've got the Helm TW5. I'm going to be talking about the Creatives this afternoon. But I still think that there's plenty of room for neckband options. You look at the OnePlus Bullets, or you look at One More. The One More neckbands are fantastic. So LG refreshing their neckband lineup. I still think neckbands are more practical. I don't like having to carry an earbud case to try and keep my earbud safe and not just jam them in a pocket full of lint and stuff that I'm then going to put them back in my ears after they've gotten kind of waxy. There is still a practicality and a lifestyle durability argument to be made on a product that drapes around your neck, that more discreetly sort of manages how your headphones might get tangled up, how the cables might get tangled up. And then also LG is bringing some really uncelebrated features to their neckband line. We're going to praise AirPods for, well, I take the AirPod case out and it automatically looks for my iPhone and asks to pair. Well, you don't need proprietary hardware to do that. The Tone Flex, and actually I want to say the last generation Tones did this too, where as soon as you turn them on, you get a prompt on an Android phone nearby. By the way, there are these awesome Bluetooth headphones that would like to connect to your phone. You want a pair? You guys could be buddies. I mean, this stuff isn't magic. And LG has been not only incorporating that, but also some of the best Google Assistant pairing that I've ever seen. So while your true wireless, you can long press to activate the assistant, the Tone Flex have a button that allows you to single tap. It's a dedicated Google Assistant button to have your notifications read to you or to more quickly interact with the notifications as they come in. So you have your notification read to you and then it's a text message and you just tap it again, you dictate your reply and you get on with your day. That kind of stuff is really handy. It's really nice. So I spent a little time with those. Again, I got all cranky and soapboxy about, oh, but these headphones don't do this and those headphones, blah, 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 blah. You can check it out. All right. Yes, one last bit of housekeeping. So I did the Monday morning tech chat show last Monday. Tuesday, I did a live stream for the Microsoft Surface event. And then on Friday, I joined the folks over at RelateCasts. They do Tech Down, is it Tech Down Over? Tech Down Under. Oh, I always flip that and reverse it. They're a fun group of guys. They do shorter. I'm always one of the longer-winded guests that they have on. But I joined the crew at RelateCasts, and we had a conversation about sort of the smartphone industry, the claims of the smartphone industry, and then how our phones should be better disrupting laptops, tablets, how we can get more stuff done from our phones. And so, you know, if you're into mobile content creation, that's great. It's still viewed as this like compromised experience when, excuse me, we're going to talk about this a little bit more in the second half, getting into the Microsoft event and the Microsoft announcements. But if we're looking at laptops and tablets that use mobile-based hardware, we should expect that our phones should be able to keep pace with those premium products. So as much as the Surface X looks kind of exciting, I don't see anything there where a OnePlus 7 and some good accessories couldn't keep up with a purpose-built ARM computer. So yeah, that was last week. I think I was all in for 6 videos and 2 podcasts. That was a lot. I did a lot last week. I need to take a drink here. Abraham Artemis. Some fanboys be like, magic. We got a couple comments here. From Aditya and Nil. For my next wireless earbuds, I was considering the KZ5 drivers Jeff reviewed, but the neckband design looks promising. A bit pricey, but the design seems durable and worth the investment for more ROI. And I point to neckbands, not just LG, but the OnePlus Bullets, solid triple drivers. The One More has 2 different neckbands. They've got a sport neckband with active noise cancellation, and then they've got a premium neckband with LDAC and triple drivers, and it's all about the quality of the listening experience. Both of those are solid options. Again, we're looking at prices and features and what's the right fit for your needs. I think the trend or the fad of true wireless is exciting right now because it's fresh and we're getting good options finally. They're not just garbage, all like the AirPods. Because we're getting good options, there's an excitement and we want to talk about those things, but you'd never discount a really good set of Bluetooth cans. Sony's, Bearer Dynamics, the new Sennheisers, gorgeous premium large can, over your ear types of headphone solutions. Great new sport buds, great new neck bands. Audio is kind of having this wireless renaissance. At the same time, as cabled options have never been better. So there's plenty out there to really pick what it is that's right for what you need. I'll never understand. I took my daughter, we just did a walk around the block, and she loves going on these like little 2.5 mile neighborhood hikes. Pretty good for an almost 4-year-old. But we go on little adventures, and right now she's really into playing Kung Fu Panda. Not really germane to the story. I just think it's adorable. But we're going out, and I'm seeing people running. It's the 90-degree heat. It's like high 80s, low 90s in the valley. And dude runs by me, dripping with sweat, wearing a pair of Sony XM3s. Like big old fat, Princess Leia cans on his ears. And how ridiculously nasty those ear pads have to be if he's working out with those cans. I don't think much of it. You just keep walking. And we round another corner, and a woman comes jogging by us wearing a pair of bows. And you're like, what is going on? Why would you wear earmuffs to go and work out in 90-degree heat? I do not get it. Thankfully, around the back end of our walk, there were two other people that were walking their dogs. One person was wearing, I don't think they were LGs, but it was some kind of Bluetooth neckband, Bluetooth solution. And then another person was wearing AirPods. And you're like, okay, more reasonable. I would probably take AirPods to work out over big, fat, juicy cans. But I'll never understand people that just drench their premium, I like to fly with them comfy headphones. Got to get out of this idea that there's one pair of headphones that do everything. I think a 2 to 3 headphone strategy is the best possible fit for an individual consumer, and you don't have to spend a lot to get there. But it's just, again, I don't get it. DTNL hashtag some practical life tips guy. Abraham Artemis, that guy likes to live dangerously. Jogging with noise-canceling cans that fully block your ears? Probably not the safest. Probably not the smartest. I know when I'm working out outside, I always turn to bone conduction because I want to be able to hear the bus that's about to turn me into street pizza. So, folks, LFA reviews. People are weird. I see people in San Francisco wearing $500 Fostex and Sennheisers on the street. Shaking my head. They definitely like to live dangerously. Kiwi Mad Dog 420. I had to get some third-party velour pads for my XM2. And Kiwi Mad Dog 420 likes the velour. All right. That was housekeeping. What? We were in for 20 minutes? I think 20 minutes is pretty good, considering I had like twice as much stuff to talk about as we did last week for housekeeping. Let's jump into some news. We've got a lot of news. I have to start off. I have to start off with politics. We always start off with politics. Last week we talked about the FCC in a difficult court case in media consolidation and media ownership. And I'm sorry, I should make this just a standard part of the plug. All of the stories, all of the links, all of the topics that we're going to be talking about will be in the show notes when the audio version of this goes live. And again, major shout out to Charlie Spirit Song. I'm pinning his comments on YouTube. If you catch the replay on YouTube, he's responsible for giving you time codes and breakdowns because he's an awesome, awesome guy, and he deserves hugs and kisses from this community. Back into politics. Last week, we talked about the FCC was in a court case, media consolidation and ownership, and courts struck that down. Again, it's a decades-long rule that our current FCC is completely beholden to mega corporations for media ownership, and that was a step in the right direction, is just pulling back some common sense from this idea that to help competition, we have to let mega corporations own all of the media outlets in one neighborhood. That doesn't help competition. Ajit Pai literally told us what the problem was and explained how his solution to fix the problem was actually going to make the problem worse while trying to convince us that this was the right solution. This week, we also got news on another court case facing the FCC, another important victory for common sense. There's a lot of losses here with this court case, but there's one very important win. And this is a story coming by way of Tech Dirt, written up by Carl Bode. Court says FCC can't stop states from protecting net neutrality. And this is from the article, just from the first paragraph. Today, a federal appeals court delivered a decidedly mixed decision in the FCC's ongoing quest to kill net neutrality and telecom sector oversight. On the one hand, the new 2-to-1 ruling by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit backs much of the FCC's Orwellian-named Restoring Internet Freedom Order, which not only repealed the 2015 net neutrality rules, but gutted much of the agency's authority over broadband providers. The decision shoveled any remaining telecom oversight to an FTC that experts say lack the authority or resources to actually police giants like AT&T, Verizon, and Comcast. But the ruling wasn't without a few notable catches. The court was quick to kick several aspects of the agency's order back to the FCC for revision. The court noted the FCC failed completely to explore how the repeal would harm public safety in efforts like the FCC's Lifeline program, which we talked about in a previous podcast, back to the article, which doles out a modest $9 monthly subsidy to low-income users to be used on wireless or broadband service. Pi's been trying to undermine this Reagan-era program for several years. But the most important aspect of this ruling is that, and I love this because this is what we talked about when we heard about this court case going up initially, that the Trump administration was suing California over net neutrality rules, the recently voted on states rules, and that the FCC was in this litigation when we talked about it, and it was probably a couple months back. The FCC was completely abdicating its responsibility from regulation over the the telecom sector. But it was trying to claim that it had regulatory oversight over states wanting to write their own rules. So in essence, they were saying, we can't police net neutrality, we can't police telecoms, but we can police states who vote on policy that would police telecoms. And this appeal was struck down. That is the best common sense approach to this. If the FCC wants to throw its hands up, wash itself of any responsibility in regulatory oversight, it can't then also claim to supersede municipalities, cities, and states that want to have some kind of regulatory oversight over the companies that are doing business in their regions. So, for all of the mega corporations out there, all of the telecoms, the Comcasts, the Verizons, who fought so hard, every single time you fight against net neutrality rules get worse for the telecoms. When we had the original OIO over 10 years ago, Verizon successfully sued the United States government to prevent it from going into effect. So then, under Tom Wheeler with the FCC, we made the rules stricter. And what we did get in 2015 for net neutrality was harder on telecoms than the original OIO. All right, well, we get a Republican president in office and we gut the FCC and we make sure that the telecoms can do whatever they want and we get rid of net neutrality. Well, now telecoms are gonna have to do business with different rules for net neutrality in every state. This is like in snatching some small victory out of the jaws of defeat for someone who is a passionate supporter of net neutrality. This is the most delicious comeuppance. So California's rules for net neutrality are even stricter than the 2015 rules that the FCC had, and there are 25 other states, maybe 27, I can't remember, but 25 other states that are looking at similar legislation, and every state is going to have slightly different rules, slightly different policy, and the telecoms are going to have to jump through different hoops. And in some states, net neutrality will mean different public access to utility poles. In some states, zoning laws are going to change. In some states, they're going to be stricter policy on privacy and consumer information. In other states, there are going to be different rules on throttling and post-processing and whether or not you can employ data caps. At some point, the telecommunications industry is going to have to figure out that if you just have one federal standard, one mandate, one big group of policy, that is better for your business in the long term. At some point, they'll get there. Today is not that day, but today we have at least one shining, gleaming moment of sanity. Beautiful. Whew. I love it. Oh, lots of headphone conversations going on in the live chat. I don't want to interrupt that, but I am having to kind of skim through different here. Okay. Kiwi Mad Dog 420. They're forced to like this ruling because states' rights. I'm not. I'm happy over this victory for some sort of local net neutrality policy, but also I think we can be fair in that political parties only seem to care about states' rights when it benefits their agenda. So I know conservatives love to trumpet how they're for states' rights, but usually only when it comes to like medical procedures on women and minorities. Now, liberals are, states' rights because reasons and executive orders and Trump and the administration. I'm not overly impressed with any political party's current tract, with the kind of policy we can really get done to help improve the telecommunications space. But I tend to lean to the left anyway, so a few wins like this, I'll enjoy the Schadenfreude over a states' rights victory that actually went in my favor. Charlie Spirit Song. The more they fight, the more they lose. Those pesky corporations. Again, right now they're winning. They're losing all the way to the bank. But a few more steps in this direction is going to make their policy so much more difficult to deal with. And again from Charlie Spirit Song, I wonder if the corporations will sue the USA to reinstate the OIO law that you said. Okay, we sued you over the law. Now we're suing you to reinstate the law. From Zalbotnik, this is kind of an interesting question. What's this whole call your representative thing you Americans have? Do you actually get to speak to someone, and does it have any real influence? So in the United States, we are woefully behind the tech curve. We actually, so much of our population doesn't even know how irrelevant they are to the 21st century because they're completely irrelevant in the 21st century. And we've actually worked pretty hard to make sure that corporations, if we can't profit off of these rural citizens, I guess they get stuck with slower than broadband speeds and really expensive prices and 3G cell phone connections, and it's just terrible, terrible, terrible. So, because of the lobbying efforts of mega telecoms and businesses like that, unfortunately, we don't have a very tech-savvy populace. And when politicians are actually representing people from their districts, you gotta contact your representative in the way that's most meaningful to your region. Here in California, I've actually had some really lovely conversations with staffers. For my district, my representative. Now my representative is kind of a dork. I don't like Sherman, and I think his stances on things like cryptocurrencies is woefully backwards from someone who takes a lot of money from the credit card industry. But I used to live in Henry Waxman's district, and I would get into great email conversations on things like net neutrality, broadband distribution, telecommunication services rollout, zoning, and especially the federal policy for how broadband would be rolled out. His staffers were amazing, and we would have these sort of back and forth email chains, and I have it saved. I've got this one email from Henry Waxman himself, totally a form letter. I know it had to be, couldn't have replied to me personally, but it was just well, thank you for contributing your thoughts, and we really appreciate your discourse in this. But that's not the norm. The norm in the United States is we have to use 1900s technology to make our voices heard, while lobbyists get a direct pipeline to whatever politician they want to throw money at. So it's a very lopsided conversation for a lot of us. Some real MVP guy. Hashtag respect. And I'm seeing the Sentinel 909 also join the live chat. Okay, moving on to another. It's not a political story, but it's a business story, and it's something we're going to have to keep our eyes on. I'm going to just leave these two articles linked. I'm not going to try and analyze the business ramifications, but we talk about automation, we talk about jobs, we talk about technology disrupting jobs. In the past, I think there's been clearer indications of when technology disrupts a certain kind of market, how it creates other opportunities in other markets. With tech, self-driving vehicles, and automation over low-level, white-collar-ish jobs, I'm not seeing the same opportunities where a corporation can easily displace thousands of jobs, but then there's a new market economy built on that technology that we can replace those jobs in those sectors. So, let me get Matt Tyler, do I win a SomeGadgetGuy pen for 10 gifted subs? I don't have a pen. You know what, Matt Tyler? Hit me up on the Discord, because I think out of all the things I could send, I could probably hook you up with a really tasty and delicious Mega Pickle mug. And you've been awesome in the Twitch chat for supporting subs and getting people linked up. So, yeah, let's chat. Anyway, back to this rambling intro. So, yes, we like to frame this as like a blue-collar problem, manufacturing jobs and driving. You know, all of the men who drive trucks, those jobs are going to get hammered by self-driving vehicles. I don't think we've been paying enough attention to some of the more office-style jobs where a couple savvy software algorithms could probably gut a lot of people's work. Case in point, this is an article written up by Brian Merchant over at Gizmodo. Goliath is winning. The biggest U.S. banks are set to automate away 200,000 jobs. Over the next decade, U.S. banks are investing $150 billion in technology annually. It will use automation to eliminate 200,000 jobs, thus facilitating the greatest transfer from labor to capital in the industry's history. The call is coming from inside the house this time. Both the projection and the quote come from a recent Wells Fargo report, whose lead author, Mike Mayo, told the Financial Times that he expects the industry to shed 10% of all its jobs. So this is an analysis over the next 10 years, but something tells me that if some of these business practices take hold, we'll see those numbers accelerate, not hold steady. And for anyone who's saying, oh, well, that's sort of down the road, or you can't get rid of these, there are so many jobs that have already been hammered. You know, think of ATMs. Even the idea of going up to a machine to do something like deposit a check is old-fashioned in a world where almost all major banks and credit unions do check scanning now. I don't think I've deposited a check in 7 years, probably 6 or 7 years, where I endorse the check and then pull out my phone and I go boop, boop, and then the monies are in my bank account. And I don't need to interact with a human or even go to a box, which has a little envelope thing. The whole notion of banks employing this army of tellers and assistants and managers, all of that infrastructure is going to prove horribly redundant when so much of this can be replaced by good website design and a couple programs and a little bit of software polish. So Wells Fargo is the one that's putting up these numbers, 200,000 jobs, probably over the next 10 years. But we're already seeing an immediate economic fallout today. We just got news. HSBC cutting 10,000 jobs. Massive cost-cutting effort and focusing on, wouldn't you know it, software and automation to replace 10,000 people. So this is Deutsche Bank, Barclays, Citigroup. They're shedding a total of 60,000 jobs all in one straight shot. And HSBC is sort of leading the charge with 10,000 jobs on their own. And this is after, I didn't cover the story last month, but apparently they also cut like another 4,000 jobs last month. So Matt Tyler, HSBC is my bank. The Sentinel 909, we are woefully unprepared for the incoming transition due to automation. It's almost apocalyptic. And Matt Tyler, can the tech tell you what's happening if something goes wrong? No, so why replace people with robots? So the point is cost. You know, we're extending, you know, we have to show shareholders that you can generate profits and that you can increase profits. And labor is a cost. So if you upset a few customers when something goes wrong, that's a drop in the bucket compared to how much money you save or how much profit you generate by getting rid of hundreds of thousands of jobs. So, yeah, it's Matt Tyler. It's all about money. Cost comes before the customer experience. And the industry moves faster than our ability to vote with our wallet. At this point, if you're going to be sacrificing that personal touch in your banking, you like having like, a regional branch and you can walk in and you know the people there and you can have a conversation, you can sort out problems that way. I would seriously consider looking at your options for a credit union, because then at least you're sort of a shareholder in the operation of that financial institution. You have some small say in how that financial entity does business, as opposed to just continuing to support the biggest banks and the biggest players when they pull moves like this. And then you're like, oh, but what do I do? And you're like, well, you can't do anything. So there you go. See, Matt Tyler, isn't this the sticky rule? All the money you save, you will have to pay on taxes to pay the unemployed people that you just fired. But again, you're still generating income and revenue and profits, and you need to show unending profit growth. So as long as you can show never-ending profit growth, which is technically cancer, then you're good. It doesn't matter. And then you can lobby and fight against things like taxes and paying into funds and social services and stuff like that. You know, here in the United States, you can look at a corporation like Walmart, super aggro and super aggressive against, paying any kind of tax on one of the most profitable industries the world has ever seen, but then they go and put their employees on social services. So instead of offering healthcare, they put the burden on states' emergency care, and that's how lobbying works. Oh, Matt, I'm not arguing with you that people need jobs. It's just this is what happens when we lean on an economic policy that incentivizes only one aspect of economic growth. If we had other benchmarks and other ways of grading success, then we'd probably have just a bit more respect, and there would be a bit more dignity in a lot of these jobs that are going to get cut, and we're completely unprepared for the fallout on those jobs going away. Anyway, let's get this over here. Okay, into some phone news, into some mobile news. Who here had a Galaxy S4? The Galaxy S4 Active was one of my favorite phones of its year, and it completely lit me up for Samsung as we were getting into the S5 and the Note 4. The Galaxy S4 was one of those turning point phones, in my opinion, because we were seeing, we were getting out of those lawsuit days of Samsung copying Apple, and Apple was the only one who was allowed to have rounded icons and squares and touch to get service functionality. Scroll. Remember, we would sit there and endlessly debate like, well, the scrolling is so much smoother, and you can't do that because Apple's got a patent on how you move through a menu. And you're like, all right, great. I'm so happy that we don't talk about phones that way anymore. But apparently, back in those days, Samsung was pulling a few shenanigans with how they would measure and disclose performance. And now, years later, there's a class action that if you have a Galaxy S4, you can get $10 apparently. This is coming by way of the Register, written up by Kieran McCarthy. Samsung has agreed to pay purchasers of its Galaxy S4 roughly $10 over alleged cheating on benchmark tests. And in case you're wondering, that's the Galaxy S4 that came out in 2013. Now, I love that the Register put up this, because the thing is, I think we need to be showing how much will these economic stings really hurt people. The mobile giant has settled a long-standing class action lawsuit for $13.4 million. That's 2.5 hours of the company's profit. And of that 13.4 million, only 2.8 million will be put into a settlement fund and 10.6 million into injunctive relief. The lawyers will get 1.5 million for their years of chasing the company. Everyone else needs to apply. So, from Geet Madden 1991, for real? What about the TouchWiz bloat slowing it down? Sorry, I know we're talking about Charlie Spirit Song's wife has an S4 Zoom, but that comment also appropriate here. So apparently, Samsung was pulling the same shenanigans. We've seen other companies do some of these things too. Huawei, OnePlus. I'm trying to think. There were a couple other companies that were caught with this sort of benchmark cheating. One of the frustrating things is it's being linked, like to explain it to consumers, they're comparing it to the Volkswagen scandal, where Volkswagen had cheat devices on their diesel cars so that they could get cleaner smog tests. But then the actual performance of the vehicle was way worse when the vehicle was out in public. I don't think cheating a benchmark on your phone is nearly as insidious as destroying the environment because you couldn't really make a turbo diesel perform as well as you thought you could. But apparently the Galaxy S4 did employ special software that would overcrank the CPU. It was a Snapdragon 600 series in the S4. I can't remember what chipset that was. But anyway, so it would, normal operating frequency was like 400 megahertz, and then when it detected a benchmark, it would jump up to 500 megahertz. You get these great scores, but then you wouldn't really get the performance in real world use. And it's a lame practice. Any company who's caught doing this, I think they deserve some kind of attention, some kind of market correction, at least a slap on the wrist for it. It's just hilarious that we're talking about a phone from 6 years ago, and this is what the legal process entails. Samsung fought this for 6 years. I wonder what their legal bills were like over 6 years in a class action lawsuit to then get to a point where they're just going to dump like $14 million at the problem. I wonder if they had just set aside $15 million a year into this lawsuit and done that, if that would have been less expensive than paying for 6 years of lawyers' fees. But again, I don't know. Who could tell? So here's the funny thing. Getting back into this article, and again, I would recommend giving this a read because it's kind of hilarious in how old this stuff is and how long it takes to sort it all out. In settling, Samsung admits no wrongdoing, but has agreed to require the entity from which it purchases new Samsung smartphones to confirm that such smartphones have not been preloaded with software that detects and boosts the performance scores from benchmarking applications until 2024. So for 3 years, Samsung promises that they're not going to cheat on benchmarks. And then after 3 years, sure, if they want to, they can. That's the full, consumer justice right there. We totally promise we're not going to tune our phones in any way to make our benchmarks look more impressive. We're Samsung. But then after 3 years, if you want to, I guess it's fine. In 3 years, it's fine if you cheat on benchmarks. So there you go. Just hilarious that we're still considering this kind of stuff, and like to that same topic, we look at performance claims from a manufacturer and how a manufacturer can alter performance, and we got real upset about things like rigging benchmarks, but I don't think we've seen good comeuppance for Apple throttling their phones over battery health, and how, someone's going to have to remind me. I believe it was in Italy that Italian investigators found that Samsung was also doing the same thing. So older Galaxy phones, I want to say from the S6 and S7 era, new software updates would hammer the phone's performance right around the time a new Galaxy phone was coming out. Again, it's, we got to make sure that your phone is running stable as the battery gets older. And, then notes started exploding. But yeah, just not a good look for the industry if you're engaging in those kinds of business practices. And I feel like the more insidious the violation, the harder the penalty and fines should be. But again, if we're only saying, it's like $10 million, well, Samsung's going to make up that profit in about an hour and a half. So by the time I'm done with this podcast, Samsung will already be profitable again from paying off this settlement. That's all it takes. We're talking, again, billion-dollar corporations. Kiwi Mad Dog 420. We're going to make them renew their vows every 3 years. From E. Curl. I had an S4 back in the day. How do I claim my $10? So Zalbotnik, I can't read your comment on the air, but I feel like many of us would share your sentiment. He's talking about emissions aren't just about the environment; it's also about people's health, and how Volkswagen probably deserved more ire and more government attention to that. But yeah, I'm completely with you there, because also I feel like some of the environmental impacts go hand in hand with some of those health impacts. I know we talk about the environment in terms of climate change and global warming, but if when we make vehicles cleaner, that has the other impact of improving air quality. And I live in a neighborhood that's not too far from a freeway, and you can see that map of terrible air quality as it emanates out from a major throughway. So yeah, I don't think anyone would feel your sentiment is that controversial. It's just I try not to drop F-bombs in keeping my podcast somewhat PG-13. Oh, and Goran Petrovic, it was in Italy. I wonder what happened with that. They were officially suing Samsung. So I'll see if I can follow that up. If there's been any news on the Italian Samsung battery throttling case. So we'll see if maybe we can make that a topic next week and do a little investigative journalism of our own. So one last story before we get to the Reddit plug. Let me get this here. And there we go. Okay. So obviously I get cranky about politics. I'm real anxious about talking about huge companies, Samsung, Apple, telecommunications industry. This was such a refreshing article to have pop back up. So this was originally sort of, this is from Northwestern Information Design and Strategy, published by Alista Part several years ago, but it came back up on my radar in a Reddit thread, and I'd never seen it before. But I wanted to kind of show this off where we've been making devices bigger. We've been making our phones larger. They've been getting taller and skinnier. And we haven't been fixing UI problems. iOS and Android still function very similarly to how they used to function when a 4.5-inch phone screen was enormous and a 5-inch phone screen was a tablet phone, a phablet. So from several years back, researchers went and looked at different UI elements and different interactions, how people hold their phones and interact with their phones and their laptops. So when the links for this go out and when the show notes for this are public, I want you to read through this because we really haven't changed much over the last 3 years. So this is a list apart how we hold our gadgets. And just the sort of synopsis. Where do hands and fingers fall on the device? The question is the linchpin for every form factor this book examines, and the answer tells you how to design your layout for comfort and efficiency. Since we hold phones, phablets, tablets, and laptops very differently, it's no surprise that each of these touchscreen variations has its own UI needs. And we're going back to research that started in 2012, 2013, looking at a one-handed grip, sort of a hold the phone and use another finger, or maybe a more BlackBerry-style dual thumb. And then what are the combinations? So are you more holding your phone and using one thumb, or are you holding your phone in one hand and using a different finger? And how much of your usage takes up that kind of operation? And then they start breaking down, like, if you're right-handed and your right thumb is trying to interact with UI elements, here's this swath on the screen where it's really easy to interact with UI, and then there's yellow where it's okay, maybe it's a bit of a reach, and then red where why would you ever put UI elements there? And wouldn't you know it, UI elements are a bad idea in the corners of your phone. You know, like where Apple puts menus, and because Apple put menus in those kinds of places, now everyone uses like a hamburger menu in the upper left-hand corner of your phone screen, which is impossible to reach. It was difficult to reach on a 5-inch screen. Now it's just impossible to reach on like a 6.5-inch screen. Like if you put anything here at the upper corner of your phone, you're a jerk. If you're an app developer and you think this is a good idea, I hope your app dies in a fire. It's where we are. But you start looking at like this type of heat map of where it's easy to touch and where it's not easy to touch. And we still are, it's difficult to reconcile UI design with this as a general shape and form factor. I'm not loving gestures in Android. And one of the reasons why is summed up in this image really well. If you look at the corner and the sides of the phone, like OnePlus and a side swipe to get you to use as a back button is not great placement for how you would normally hold the phone to interact with the easiest parts of the screen to reach. We haven't really addressed the functional differences in form factor. A home button works really well, and it works really well for a variety of different shapes and sizes. Getting rid of just one button press and turning that into a swiping gesture will never be as efficient. It just can't. I'm going through, and you're like, for as much as I love phones like the OnePlus 7, this let me swipe up and hold to interact with multitasking will never be as clean as just the one button multitask, flipping back and forth between two apps, tap, 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 tap. It's that fast. Android is trying to keep things familiar without reorganizing the UI. So they don't want to scare you with a new UI, but they are trying to find a gesture which reasonably replicates what used to be just a very simple button press. And same thing, I mean, Apple started us on this path of getting rid of home buttons And I don't feel iOS really has evolved to properly meet the challenges of these new form factors for phones. The swipe up on the home screen, not as clean. Face unlock doesn't work as seamlessly in as a wide a variety of situations as when I pull out my iPhone SE, and before it's out of my pocket, I've hit the home button and my thumbprint has been registered and the phone is on and active without me waiting for it to scan my face and then swiping up on the screen. There's so much less managing the phone when we use the operating system with the controls it was originally designed for, the home button. I feel like, again, my 3D touch experience on the iPhone XS has gotten worse with iOS 13 because we know Apple's pretty much given up on 3D touch. But Apple could have done something revolutionary. They could have turned the entire screen into a home button instead of maybe it's a context menu when you force press into an app. With no conveyance that you can do things, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, who knows, but it could be a menu. If they had just taken that same hardware and turned that into the home screen, then it wouldn't matter. You look at this heat map, and it doesn't matter where on the phone you touch. You have your home button and your multitasking everywhere. And that would actually be exciting new revolutionary design to control how you interact with that device. So I've got an editorial penned. I might turn it into a video, but it can't be just a one-to-one replacement. I feel like Google, Apple, Microsoft, we need to be doing a better job of how is the device changing? How is the form factor changing? What is the human hand actually good at? And trying to refine the UI so it's matching those changes, not just, we kind of need to have some kind of home action. So instead of a button, we're going to make you cradle the phone from its bottom edge and then swipe up. And if you miss that swipe, all it's going to do is sort of bring up the little swipe bar, and then you get to swipe again. And then if you want to multitask, you gotta nail that same gesture, but then you pause. So it takes longer just because we have to force the phone to wait so that it knows that that's what you wanted to do and that it wasn't just a regular swipe. But if you miss that swipe, it's just going to take you home. I mean, that's not good design. That's really bad design. From Zal Botnick, BlackBerry 10 was perfect, in my opinion. Again, what we're talking about with BlackBerry 10 was we're making these types of phones. Some of them had taller portrait aspect ratios, and some of them had squares. But from the ground up, that operating system was built with the notion of gestures in mind. Those gestures weren't taken from old BlackBerry software and stapled on. Every time you just staple on a gesture to try and replace a button, it's gonna be crap. It's not gonna be good. Oh, you get used to it, but I'm tired of getting used to inferior methods of interacting with our gadgets. From Goran Petrovic, gestures aren't as reliable as buttons, without a doubt. I use pie gestures on my G7, but make more mistakes. It can be done, but it's simply not as reliable. And then I also, on Android 10, I missed the pill. The pill was a nice compromise between sort of a button for your home and then sort of a swiping side-to-side gesture to multitask. I thought that was a great compromise. You're not solving any problems if you still need to interact with the bottom edge of the phone. If I still have to reach down here, then I might as well just have a button or a couple buttons that let me do everything that I want to do. From 20 Miles 1975, I've tried them on my P30, but the lower half left side swipe in gets confused for slide in menus. And that's the thing that bugs me about side swiping for the back button is if you miss by just a little bit, then you move the app laterally. And if I'm in a spreadsheet, I do all of my smartphone benchmarks and I've got an Excel spreadsheet. If I try to go back in Excel, it almost never goes back it almost always moves me through my Excel spreadsheet, which is so frustrating. From Geet Madden 1991, Apple needed to remove the button to accommodate the new design, and Android is, I don't know, doing it for the sake of doing it, and change for the sake of change is never a good change. So I disagree. If Apple needed to remove the button, they could have come up with something far more graceful than the bottom swipe. And like I said, you could have kept all of your UI the same, going from an iPhone 8 to an iPhone 10. You swipe up from the bottom for your quick actions. You swipe down from the top to get your notifications, and you press in the middle, and that takes you home. And I keep explaining this like, what if someone was less tech savvy? So you go to your grandmother, because everyone loves to like harass grandmothers with technology, right? Oh, grandmothers can't do anything. Oh, try explaining that to my grandmother. Change is hard. But go to someone who's less tech savvy and say, okay, we're getting rid of the home button. So now all of the things that were super organic about pushing a button are now swipes. So if you want to go home, you have to line up off the bottom edge of your super skinny, slippery phone. You better have a case on it because it's going to fling out of your hand at some point. You swipe up from the bottom, and then if you want to multitask, you kind of swipe and pause, or you force press in from the left-hand bottom corner side and drag. That could also be multitasking. And then you've got to like double click your power button. Your screenshot is totally different. To turn the phone off completely, you've got to now power button plus volume rocker. You got to do all these different things. Or you could go to that same not tech savvy person and say, we got rid of your home button. Now your screen is the home button. So how do I go home? Push the screen. Where? Anywhere. How do I multitask? Double push the screen. Where? Anywhere. Apple could have done something truly revolutionary to UI, but they did the same lazy thing that now Android is playing with making swipes the same as buttons, and it's not as good. From Goran Petrovic, I just need every phone to have swipe down for notifications. It's crazy the G7 doesn't have it. Again, I know it's only on the home screen, but I switched over to Nova Launcher just so that I could swipe from the middle of the screen to get my notifications. I don't stick with any stock company launcher anymore. I'm pretty much just always going to Nova because I am a creature of habit. Let's see. Some chatter about the ROG phone because Matt's really loving his ROG phone. And okay, we're caught up. So, I had a real busy week last week getting a ton of videos out, and I probably messed up the YouTube algorithm a little bit. Excuse me. Lots of these videos not really trending very well on YouTube for analytics and for performance, and increasingly, I've kind of become a bit happier with that. I'm sort of seeing the ramifications and the impact of focusing on a certain community and making sure that we're getting good conversations from people who care about actually participating. And I don't think I want a YouTube audience that's built on really cranky tech enthusiasts who don't really participate but demand tons of content and super high quality content. That's a very rambly way. Again, this podcast, always rambly, of getting into the weekly plug for supporting content creators, support your local content creators, and different ways that we can help facilitate that. I didn't realize, so they started putting like the stats on when subreddits were created. I'd not bothered to follow up. I created glowing rectangles back in 2014 and then didn't do anything with it for like 2 years. And then started trying to find ways to make it more functional. And in this last year, I think we found a system where we're seeing better growth and we're seeing better interactions. But that's been one of the that's been one of the outlets. It's been one of the tools that I've tried using to see if we can't find more opportunities to help content creators find new audience and to help people get a bit more attention on what they make. And not just for new up and coming content creators, also for people who just deserve more attention. There are channels out there that aren't doing as well under this current flavor of YouTube algorithm, but that doesn't mean that they're putting out bad content. They're just not putting out YouTube's favorite trending topic, insta popularity, echo chamber content. But if you're really a tech fan, if you're really a tech enthusiast, that's the kind of stuff you should want to interact with, is a more diverse and a more nuanced and a smarter, broader approach to discussing the entire landscape of technology, not just every video has to be about Apple and Samsung because that's what's popular on YouTube. So I created Glowing Rectangles, reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles, and every week I am heartened and emboldened to continue supporting this little budding, growing community because I'm always excited to see what other people share, contribute, and upvote. And it's always a very diverse collection of topics. If you go to YouTube and you look at your feed, like the channels you subscribe to, YouTube is going to push popular topics at you. So you would think, oh, well, most tech commentary is focused on Apple and Samsung. We're already talking about 2020 iPhone rumors and the Galaxy S11 and what Samsung's gonna do, and the Galaxy Fold must be amazing, and and maybe there's a Pixel story in there, and maybe there's some OnePlus coverage in there, but mostly we care about that popular stuff. And every week on Glowing Rectangles, we see way more stuff. So this last week, the top stories on our Glowing Rectangles, he basically deserves a near permanent spot at the top of this subreddit. Gary explains open GUI apps on Windows subsystem for Linux and on Raspberry Pi. How to use Linux apps on Windows. So I make this joke, or it's not even a joke, it's just accurate commentary on the state of how terrible YouTube tech commentary is. When you go to YouTube and you search for explained, most of those videos are garbage. Like, super basic concept, explained, and then you've got like oh, I'd never thought of that, and like a light bulb picture, and there's a wacky face in the thumbnail, and I'm thinking about something real hard, but it's just Bluetooth, because I explained Bluetooth. Like, that's almost always a useless video. Like, even the people that might benefit from like an examination of a difficult tech topic, you're not finding it there. When Gary Explains does an explained video, dude goes deep. Open GUI apps. Using Linux apps on Windows, this man absolutely deserves significantly more traffic and attention on his channel. And regularly, deservedly, he's at the top of the charts here on Glowing Rectangles. Second place on our Glowing Rectangles, Microsoft Duo First Look from Fandroid. Nick Gray has been producing for Fandroid. Nick is a very dear friend of mine. He's been doing some incredible work getting Fandroid back up to a journalistic standard that I absolutely love. He's been doing great camera comparisons, like he'll do selfie video comparisons between different phones. Very casual, very real world examinations on products. But also, Nick is just one of those people who really lives what he preaches. I think they're just wrapping it up now, but he basically packed up his family, threw them in an RV, and just teched out that RV with top-of-the-line travel technology, solar, batteries, everything. And they've been living out of that RV on the road, just touring the country for, I want to say, almost 2 years. Just awesome. Just incredible life experiences, and he shares that. He shares that content. He shares those thoughts in how he uses mobile technology. So to see him in the number 2 spot, I'm always going to be excited to see a Fandroid video getting some more attention. And then this is from GadgetGuy, the Xiaomi Mi A3 full review. This is a new personal favorite channel. I just love GadgetGuy's style. I like that they have a calm, conversational quality to their reviews. And this is one of those channels that, as a reviewer in the United States, I've been leaning on a lot because we just don't get the same access to some of these other companies, especially smartphones that are manufactured more for Asian markets, Indian markets, China, and sort of the surrounding areas around there. And I love GadgetGuy's video production style. It's pretty, but it's not, let's try and make this phone look cinematographic. I'm not impressed by, like, it's a glass-backed glowing rectangle. Ooh, look at this panning and tracking shot. How cinematic. Whoa, there's movement because my brain can't handle a static shot because I'm a Gadget fan. GadgetGuy's cool. And then, you know, like, out of the top 3, there's some jerk talking about the OnePlus 7T versus the OnePlus 6T. But it was a video that went up the week before. I don't know if it was one of the more popular from the week before. But someone taking a look at the Snapchat spectacles. That's not a high-interest piece. That's never going to be a trending topic on YouTube now. But I don't know if I didn't know this, but Snapchat's still making spectacles. So who do we have here? Tom DeChico showing off what he likes about camera glasses. That's actually kind of a fun video. You know, if you wanted something to shake up your YouTube feed, if you wanted to see a tech conversation or a tech topic that's not going to be reflected in only talking about Apple and Samsung, that was actually a refreshing video to watch. I really liked that video. And so that's my weekly plea. Reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles, growing by like 3 members a week. You know, it's a super, super small community. I never expect that this subreddit will be like a front page subreddit. But what we're already starting to see are those little hints of, if something gets super popular on our glowing rectangles, it's starting to get shared and cross-posted to other larger subreddits. And we talked about this last week too. Gary Explains revamped his entire speed test so that iPhones can now be compared against Androids in a 1-to-1 performance benchmark metric. You know, no guessing, like, does this mean that iPhones are faster or Androids are faster? It's very easily laid out. But then also to compare new iPhones against old iPhones. I shared Gary's video on our Apple and our iPhone, and no one seemed interested in the Apple communities to take a look at actual performance differences between an iPhone 11 and an iPhone XS. Those larger subreddits have largely rolled over into fan subreddits and entertainment subreddits. But if you're really into tech and you really care about, well, this company made a claim, does it really live up to those manufacturing claims? You're probably not going to find it in an avenue which is built on echo chambering popular content. You're probably not going to find that just through normal YouTube search and promotion, because there's not much value in someone looking at Samsung's performance claims and then making a video that analyzes and dissects those claims, because Samsung fans kind of don't really want to know if that stuff lives up. They just want to know, they want the feel-good messaging, and they want to feel like their stuff got better, but maybe it didn't. But if they found out it didn't, they probably wouldn't be happy about that. But they'll take it out on a YouTube content creator. They won't actually be upset with Samsung. And ditto. I loved seeing, you know, like Apple bar graph, iPhone 11 Pro 20% faster than iPhone XS. And Gary runs his speed test and he's like, it's more like 4%. So if you flipped your iPhone XS to get an iPhone 11 Pro, you got a phone that in real world conditions is like 4% faster. So awesome. I'm so glad that marketing is as powerful as it is. But reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles, not only to find new stuff, but if there's a content creator you really like, you want to help them find more audience and find an audience of people that are more likely to engage with these types of tech topics, give them a share, give them a shout. We need to be more active than just passively watching a video. Oh, that was a great video. Maybe I'll watch the next video they put out. Isn't going to help you as an audience get more cool stuff. If you want more cool stuff, you want a broader discussion of tech topics, you actually need to put in a little bit more effort than just watching. You need to share, you need to support, you need to engage in conversations. And this subreddit, r glowing rectangles, was my attempt to help contribute to that overall idea, that overall project, that overall discussion. So I hope you'll check it out. I hope you'll give the subreddit a share. You know, bring more people to the subreddit and we'll all find some new stuff. I guarantee you, if you've been relying on YouTube recommendations, if you come over to r glowing rectangles, you will find someone you've never seen before and you'll probably dig what they have to say. And if you don't, then you also know who not to follow. But I'm not going to focus on that because I want to focus on the positive. Reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. Check it out. I think you'll like it. Okay. Abraham Artemis, they only want the glossy stuff. Assuming you're talking about like the Apple subreddits. I was actually really disappointed. I thought Gary did an amazing job of completely recoding his benchmark suite so that iPhones could be compared. And if you want to win that iPhone versus Android debate, he's giving out great data to support different performance claims. But his results still somewhat contradict Apple's own internal marketing on how their own products are getting better year over year. So anyway, Aditya Anil, hashtag some amazing initiative guy. From Rosted, Megapixel shirts. Okay, so we've got the Megapixel mug. I am working on some kind of design that we can do a Megapixel shirt. The problem is I'm debating on just those little accents and touches. Like, you know, my Megapixel mug has a selfie camera, so there's like a bezel at the top of the phone, and has the traditional Android navigation controls at the bottom. But if I try to make a Megapixel mug or a Megapixel shirt that just looks like a modern, like say I wanted it to look like a OnePlus, it would just be a rectangle with pickles on it. And it doesn't read as a phone anymore without some phone UI indication, like some conveyance of what this rectangle is supposed to be. So I'm working on it. I might just use this and make that just sort of like the front, you know, like logo in a regular shirt and just be done with it. But I am seriously looking at how to do a Megapixel mug. Actually, let me put this into the chat. The Megapixel mug has the phone with the megapixels, and then on the back it says more than just the megapixels. If I do a shirt, should I try and find a way to put all of this kind of stuff on the front? Or should I do like a shirt where it's a very simple logo, the Megapixel image on the front, and then text on the back? So let me know your thoughts, and you can help me streamline some of my merch strategy here, because I've always intended on doing a shirt. I'm just a little overworked as a completely solo content creator. So anyway, you tell me, is it front logo, back text, or is it everything on the front, or something else? I don't know. Just let me know. So this is the sort of last half hour-ish, getting into some hardware spotlights. This is coming by way of Goran Petrovic. He really wanted me to talk about this. I put out a tweet that the Pixel 3a is being sold on Amazon today. I don't know if it's just today or if it's like a permanent price cut or what, but it's $50 off. So you can get a Pixel 3a for $350. Today, Sony also announced the Xperia 8. I was very taken with the Xperia 1. I have not played with an Xperia 10, but this is the Xperia 8 in Sony's ongoing, oddly named smartphone strategy, smartphone lineup. And it looks like it's going to be a solid mid-ranger. Somewhere around, I don't know what the USA pricing is going to be, but it's going to be somewhere around $400. Snapdragon 630, 2:1 aspect ratio, 1080p display, 21:9 display. It's going to come with 64 gigabytes of storage. And what did they say for quick charging? Was it 20 watt? 18 watt fast charge. So looks like an all-around solid mid-ranger option. This is another phone that will likely just end up unlocked on B&H, but I wouldn't be counting out these mid-ranger players. That debate between older flagship and newer mid-ranger is getting real good at the sub $400 price. If this can launch at like $399, it's going to have a tough fight against a price-reduced Pixel 3a. The Pixel 3a being just slightly more powerful. And what I did when I played with that T-Mobile Revelry, I did a review on the Revelry Plus, which is sort of a rebadge of a Moto G7. $350 phone, eminently capable of doing everything you need in a daily driver kind of way. Social media, great. Cameras, surprisingly good. Not as good as the Pixel, but surprisingly good. Able to shoot and render 4K video. Like, there's very little holding you back at around $300 to $400. And not just from like I can do like text messaging on it. No, I mean like pretty heavy use. The only thing that these phones tend to fall down on is very graphics intense gaming. And if you're not doing very graphics intense gaming like Matt Tyler is on his ROG2, what you don't need a $700 plus phone. It's nice to know you've got a little extra horsepower. A OnePlus 7T is nice. It's screaming fast. You're pretty confident you're going to get good software support. But Sony has been excellent for maintenance updates. The Pixel 3a has been excellent for keeping up with major operating system updates alongside the more expensive Pixels. I'm struggling. Like, there aren't. I don't see the good reasons why you would want to go with an older phone if your usage is in that middle to heavy tier of smartphone use. As long as you're rocking at least a Snapdragon 630 something, and you've got a decent amount of storage, you've got a decent amount of RAM, I would believe the Sony cameras are going to be acceptable, not as good as a Pixel, but still okay, kind of like my Xperia XZ1 Compact. This looks like it's going to be a solid buy. And I like that they're still continuing their 21:9. The 21:9 vertical scroll is awesome. If you like to scroll through apps that scroll vertically, a tall, skinny, super skinny phone where it's awesomely easy to reach the opposite side of the phone, it's a fresh take on how you do basic stuff on your phone. So yeah, I'll be curious to see how this goes, but it's gonna be a confusing naming situation. I think I've kind of got it down. It's a little like Canon cameras, right? So if you have one number on a Canon camera, that's their higher end. If you have two numbers, that's their mid-range. And if you have three numbers, that's their entry-level gear. So in the United States, we call a Canon a Rebel, but in Europe, it's a 500. Well, the 500 isn't going to be as good as a 50. And a 50 isn't going to be as good as a 5. And a 5 isn't going to be as good as a 1. Generally, oversimplifying. And I kind of think that's what Sony's trying to do here. The Xperia 1 is their crown jewel flagship. The Xperia 5 is their premium daily driver. The Xperia 8 is their smaller mid-ranger. And the Xperia 10 is their larger mid-ranger. I think I have that right. So, yes. Worth checking out. The other reason why Sony was important in the discussion today, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I'm hoping I'll get the update soon so that I can actually take advantage of this. In our household, because my wife works for a video game developer and publisher, we have to have some kind of game console for her job. Like that's for work. You would think that adults playing games on a game console, well, that would be like recreate. Oh, no. This is very important to my wife's business. So we have to have one. I wish we didn't have to have one. You know, like I wish like we could just have like a regular TV and not have extra boxes under it. But you know, you have to have one. You have to have one. We went with the PlayStation 4. And soon, and this was a story that broke just today, PlayStation 4 Remote Play no longer a Sony Xperia exclusive. So, if you're an Xperia fan, I could see where maybe this would be a little bit of a bummer. Like, this was one of those beneficial ecosystem value adds for having an Xperia phone. But for the overall Android community, making games more mobile and more portable and being able to experience high-level gameplay on any type of screen is gonna be good. I was very surprised how well Steam Link worked on Android. I know it's still is it still technically in beta? I don't think it is now. But anyway, being able to play a game on my PC from my phone was pretty cool. And especially phones have reasonably good support for connecting controllers. Now, as long as you're rocking at least Android 5 or above, you will be able to stream a game from your PlayStation 4 to your phone, and it's going to have better support for DualShock controllers. So I'm going to link an article from Tech Radar. PS4 Remote Play no longer a Sony Xperia exclusive on Android. And I'm excited to give this a spin. You know, we're going to see all of these different solutions for game streaming coming out, Google Stadia, Microsoft's XPlay. Just moving these parts around, it's still a little bit of a bummer that you have to drive the game from a PlayStation and then you can stream it to another device as opposed to it being just server side. But that's still a step in the right direction. And again, being able to take a game that would normally be sort of a couch experience and move it away starts to hit at that blurring of lines. You know, like the Switch is coming at it from the opposite direction. You know, like you've got a mobile game that can that can sort of be shared on a TV, a mobile gaming console that can then be shared on a TV. And here we can now take a couch console experience and put it into your hands on the go as long as you've got a decent data connection. So this would be pretty cool. This update should be landing soon. I couldn't find the date on when there's going to be an update for the PlayStation 4, and then the app, the Sony PS4 app, is going to get an update. And then as long as you have Android 5 or above, you'll be able to take your PlayStation games on the road. From Richie MB91, you don't know how much I wished I could play right in bed in the night on my PlayStation 4. Well, we're all there. Again, I was like, there's no reason. There's really no reason why we can't move gaming. So I'm very interested. I'm very interested in what this should be able to do. And also, Matt, on your ROG phone too, I'm gonna be bugging you like, hey, how does console gaming work on your ROG phone? And Kiwi Mad Dog 420, I'm already playing games around the house with Steam Link and Moonlight. So good. So good. It was Moon Knight, I think, was one of the first games that I did the remote on, but Ape Out. Oh man, I was playing so much Ape Out on my phone. It was so good. I mean, I love that game, and I totally get. I mean, like, I liked playing it at my workstation. If you haven't played Ape Out, it is an awesome, brutal roguelike action title, and the aesthetic is gorgeous, and it's just this chaotic jazz soundtrack, and it's just a visceral experience. I can't play it for very long. After about a half hour, I'm just fried, but I'm like, It's kind of also a catharsis at the same time. But while I liked playing it on my desktop, because I was only playing it in short bursts, I would like need to get up and walk around, and I'd be like in the living room and like throwing soldiers into walls and like smashing skulls, and then I'd have to put the phone down for a second and go like, I need to beat this map. So good from a phone. So good. Okay. So, moving right along. To wrap us up, the last sort of 20 minutes, and especially as we get into like questions and comments, and I definitely want to get your guys' thoughts on this. The Microsoft event last week was kind of fantastic. I slept through the first half of what Microsoft had to announce because I wasn't really expecting much. I was expecting Surface refreshes, and yeah, we'll get a new Surface Pro. We all kind of knew Microsoft was going to announce something like the Surface X, some kind of ARM chipset competitor. We know Samsung has their partnership with Microsoft where they have a Windows 10 ARM chipset laptop style device. So, you know, I walk in just as they're wrapping up the Surface X. I've got my cup of coffee in hand, and Panos Panay on stage from Microsoft starts doing his best Steve Jobs impersonation with, okay, we've showed you everything that we've got today, but this is really dangerous, and I want to show you what's coming in 2020. And I'm like, oh. And like I put my coffee down, and I got my keyboard, and I pulled up Twitter, and I'm going to get ready to tweet about this. And he showed off 2 products that are going to be coming next year. So for all of the excitement, or at least, you know, like the expected tech discussion over the new Surfaces, I think it's pretty safe to say that the Surface Duo and the Surface Neo, which will be arriving next year, kind of stole the show. And they did so in a really beautiful way because we weren't expecting these kinds of announcements. I am so tired of keynotes and presentations where we're just regurgitating all of the specs and all of the leaks and all of the rumors, and really it's just confirming all of the things we already knew. I'm very much looking forward to spending some time with the Pixel this year. I didn't spend any time with the Pixel 3 last year. I want to see what's going on with the Pixel 4 when I actually have one in my hands and I can use it as a daily driver. I'm not that excited for their keynote. Like, the actual presentation of the device is probably gonna be really dull. So Microsoft blows up the internet, at least the tech enthusiasm communities, for a hot minute, talking about Neo and Duo, but they're also doing this in the best way possible for Microsoft. We're getting ahead of any leaks, getting ahead of any rumors, confirming a project that we've known has always been in Microsoft skunkworks, this notion of a dual screen tablet-y device. We know Microsoft has been working on one since Windows 7, and probably earlier, because I remember some of those crazy concept designs around transmeta CPUs for Windows XP, like compact hardware for some of those slate and tablet devices back in the day. We know Microsoft has always had designs on this, but not only do they get ahead of all the speculation, they've got consumers interested in what the Surface line is going to do in a year. It also gives their manufacturing partners time to put out their own devices. Like, the Surface line should always be, here is a premium example of what we think Windows can do. And then Lenovo can go off and do something crazy. And Dell can go off and do something corporate. And HP can struggle to make printers that work. You always want to give those other manufacturers the opportunity to join the competition with their own flavors. And it's what I always hoped would happen with phones. As soon as we started hearing about productivity phones and gaming phones, I want to see phones in a market that looks like laptops today. We don't blink an eye at a convertible tablet and a gaming laptop and a super sleek travel portable and like a big heavy mobile workstation. There are so many different solutions for those different product categories, and consumers can pick exactly the kind of machine at the price point that they need. Phones are kind of reaching this commonality where we're all agreeing the market can only support one idea of what a smartphone should be. And that's the death of the smartphone. If it's that restrictive, if it's that agreed upon, that only Apple and Samsung get to dictate what phones should do or look like, that's not good. That's not good for the health of an ecosystem. So, sorry, Adichie Nil. Ooh, Juan be dissing on HP. Sorry, all 6 hardcore HP fanboys who are in my stream. It's not on you. It's on HP. And especially for a company that took my beloved iPac name back in the day and ground that into the dirt, or we could be leading the way with mobile technology and mobile computing. The HX 4700 with its HD screen back in pen touch PDA days. If HP wanted to be relevant, they could have been relevant, but they're not. And Zalbotnik, I completely agree. Printers are proof that demons exist. True story. From Fat Produce, the back of the Duo looks like 2 Star Trek TNG pads attached to each other. So yeah, let's actually pull this up. Let me start with. I'm not going to spend as much time on this because I'm a bit more of a phone and mobile guy. Gary the Fireman. Doesn't HP stand for horrible products? Oh, poor Hewlett Packard. Pulling up the screen share here. So this is the Microsoft Surface Neo. This is going to be 2 tablets connected by a really fancy hinge system. Now, obviously, there's a break between these 2 displays, but it looks like 2 iPad Airs kind of stapled together. And to play, let me kill the audio here so it doesn't blast headphone users. I really like this design. I really like this form factor. This is going to be more durable. It's going to be more practical than trying to make a folding display in 2020. But you're still going to have most of the benefits of more screen real estate. And what's interesting is we're also going to see they're showing this Intel chipset flying in with all this fancy computer animation. But Intel is also putting a lot behind this too, because we're seeing some of the gaps in Intel's product lineup. So they're making this big little processor custom chipset for this product because Intel currently doesn't have a good competitor against ARM. So with so much of the market moving over to ARM, they've got to start finding some novel solutions for delivering lower power portable performance and higher horsepower power performance when the user needs it. But again, I really like this idea of extra screen real estate when you need it. And then in this little demo, you're going to see there's a magnetic stylus that just sticks to the back of the tablet. The butterfly hinges wrap all the way around if you just want to go into one screen mode. And then there's also going to be a snap-on keyboard so that you can also get typing done. And again, it's all magnetic. It all sticks to the device. You don't have to have silos or ports or anything like that. So if you want to use it like a more traditional laptop with an Asus-style second display above the keyboard for like your toolbars or for video playback, this is really well-considered design. This is exactly what I would want to see a company like Microsoft taking the reins on and dictating what the future of their product lineup should resemble. So I'm excited about Neo. But I'm also coming at Neo at the same time as I'm hoping that other mobile devices will start to disrupt tablets and laptops. So during what was so much fun, during the keynote, I see Neo, they're opening it up, and it's great. You know, it's a tablet form factor. I even make a quip like, you know, like for some people, if you could get a version of this that has LTE, it could start to disrupt phones. Like Microsoft could be starting with the desktop and working backwards to try and get to a point where they can disrupt mobile devices. And I even tweeted out at one point like, man, seeing the Neo makes me so sad that they gave up on Windows Phone, because just imagine where we would be with a phone if it had the same attention to manufacturing and details as this Neo does. And I'm leaving that tweet up because like 10 minutes after I tweeted that, Microsoft shows off the Duo, which was hilarious. Adam Dowd actually called me out like, this tweet did not age well over 15 minutes. So not only do we get the one more thing, here's the Neo. Panos Panay comes back out on stage, shows off the Neo. We talk about all the cool stuff it's going to do. This new hybrid Intel chipset. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I'm very excited about Neo. And then he goes, well, wait a minute. If you liked this Neo, we actually have one other thing to show you too. And here, let me go back into screen share. We'll, can I just make this? No, I can't. Sorry, that's going to get weird. Here is the Microsoft Surface Duo. So if we have a big tablet, wouldn't it be nice to have two smaller kind of phone screen sized displays that sort of do the same thing? So here in this video, they're showing off, this is the Neo and I can type on the Neo. Isn't this so exciting? You just saw the Neo in the first, but what if I get a phone call? Oh, what's this? Let me pull this out of my purse. It seems to be a much smaller version of the same thing we just showed you, and look, it's a phone call on dual displays. So 2020 is absolutely going to be the year of dual screen, hybrid dual screen, snap-on screens, and folding phones. And Microsoft is joining this in a big way. So what we know, Microsoft Surface Duo is going to be an Android-powered device. So right out of the gate, in minutes after the announcement, there was already an article up on The Verge talking about how, well, Microsoft's mobile strategy is going to live or die by the apps. You're like, are you kidding me? Are you joking? It's Android. So you have access to all of the Android apps. Like, that's not going to be, the app gap isn't going to be a problem. It's just going to be skinned. It's going to have like a Microsoft launcher on it. It's probably going to come standard with Microsoft services. I use Office and Word and Excel. I'm already good there. OneDrive is my favorite cloud storage solution. And I love that they tease this too. So when she starts gaming, this looks like a tease for Project X Cloud, where you can play console games over a data connection. And it's not actually being run on the phone. It's just being streamed to the phone. I'm very, very excited about this because I would love to see another take on productivity, stylus support, dual screens, everything that I kind of hoped the Galaxy Fold would have been in making a Note competitor. Looks like we're going to get it for real here on the Surface Duo. And without having to jump through those weird hoops of, well, does it have a Microsoft app that I can use? Oops, I need more water. We're jumping right into Android. So next year is going to be an interesting year for experimental form factors. From Pakostan, LG needs to sell more of those screen cases and update the software. I guess the problem is the software for them, not that Microsoft isn't full of gremlins. Would the Duo have a dedicated QA team, or will it be just as Windows 10 with public beta tests? So something tells me if Microsoft is putting out an Android device, that it's going to be managed by the Surface team. That means slightly different updates, support, and expectations than just the normal Windows updates. You know, drivers, signing off on support, on hardware, on accessories. I would hope that Microsoft is pretty aggressive. Now, what we don't know, this current show device, is obviously they had some of these Duos on hand to check out after the Microsoft keynote, and people did get to kind of hold them and play with them. But right now, I think it's running Android 9 with Snapdragon 855. I will be very surprised if a major part of this strategy wasn't waiting for Android to get smarter at multi-screen and different screen form factors. Android is super dumb when it comes to plugging in another display, but one of the updates, one of the improvements to Android 10 is better screen awareness. I don't think you can do the Duo right if you don't have sort of a core Android system for understanding when it's open and you see both screens, when it's closed and you only see one screen. That, I think, will be necessary for this product to launch next year, which is why I think we got a year lead time on this device coming out. So that's the big question. And I see a lot of people already trying to estimate, like, what do we think something like this is going to cost? And my my guess, so we've got 20 miles 1975 is saying $1,300. Matt Tyler is saying 1,300 pounds because he's British. Who else? Did anyone else put in an over-under? We talked about this quite a bit during my live stream, but my guess would be a Surface Duo with 8 gigabytes of RAM, 128 gigabytes of storage, a Snapdragon 865, whatever is going to come out next year, and a 4G data connection starting at $14.99. And then, just like every other Surface, you would have options to go up in storage, maybe even go up in RAM, and then maybe also a second version of the phone which has a 5G data connection. So my guess would be you start off at $1,500 for the base model phone, and then you climb up to $2,000 for 12 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of storage space, and a 5G data connection, with a couple different models moving in between. So that would be my guess. I think that makes sense when you have two phones stapled together, two displays, a lot of software engineering to make that a seamless experience. Like, I make fun of the Galaxy Fold, but the one thing that works really well is Samsung's software customizing to move apps between the small display and the big display. That works pretty well. You can see that it's a little shakier on an LG when you fire up the second screen, and it kind of is just like having another phone. You know, they're separate. So you can still do, you know, like, it's still more productivity space. It's just a little less refined than what I think we'll see from Microsoft with a dual screen device. So that's my guess. Abraham Artemis is saying 1,200. Adichie Anil is saying 900 for the Duo. Zhao Botnik is saying 2,000 euro. That's another thing too, is something tells me the first gen Duo is going to be a savagely expensive product overseas. That what we'll spend $1,500 on in the United States after regional pricing and converting for the dollar and exchange rates and all of that other mess will probably be a lot more expensive in other markets. So Matt Tyler, Galaxy Fold, Mate X, Duo, all $1,500 or $2,000 for a meaningful version. Buy a Pixel 3 or 4a and a second-hand tablet or laptop for about $800 all in. Says the man rocking an ROG phone too. From Goran Petrovic, as time goes by, LG's solution seems more likable, or at least the most practical. Yes. So here's my feeling. My feeling on this isn't that I don't think super expensive phones shouldn't exist, but I want to see a lifestyle durable companion that makes a compelling argument for what a phone can really do. Now, if we're just talking about the candy bar form factor, I don't see much reason to climb up to $1,000 territory unless you're really trying to drive the mobile experience. So like, this is an LG V50. You can get it on Sprint for $999. It's one of the most beastly powerful devices of the year. It is one of the all-time top-tier crown jewel examples of content creation on the go. It has a truly audiophile grade headphone jack, so you don't need to spend $300 or $400 on a digital audio player to really power nice headphones. It's got the absolute smoothest video, comparable to an iPhone 11 Pro with triple cameras like an iPhone 11 Pro. And it doesn't sacrifice any of the fun features, night mode, super steady shot like on a Samsung. Like, it's got everything. But for $1,000, it also has a 5G radio. So those price premiums over 5G, this is in the same pricing territory as a Note 10. It's in the same pricing territory as a Note 10 with a much higher resolution display, the ability to add storage via micro SD cards, better camera controls than what's on a Samsung, and you didn't need to spend, you spent $50 more for a 5G radio on the V50. That to me is competitive ballparking. So I would give up an S Pen, but I would have slightly better future proofing as Sprint rolls out their strategy for 5G. That's a complicated discussion on what a consumer might value. Getting into something like the Surface Duo, what I would hope is that if anyone can take the general underpinning, the general OS backbone of Android, and make it more disruptive, I would hope it would be Microsoft. So we already know Android 10 has the beginnings of support for a true desktop mode. And these ARM chipsets now easily rival x86 for portable laptops. I mean, look, Microsoft putting out the Surface X. Samsung is putting out, I forget what Samsung's ARM-powered laptop is. But those devices hang with proper laptops that use x86 from Intel or AMD, and they're more power efficient. They're usually better for LTE connectivity. Like, there are some serious advantages in going ARM. So if I had a Surface Pro, a Surface Duo, and I could connect it to another display and have a desktop mode like Continuum, so that I could do more work from a larger display or from a laptop dock or from some other conversion of that screen size. And then I could pop it out and I could have sort of a normal phone experience with one screen or a larger tablet-y experience with two screens. Starting around $1,500, that product means I don't need to buy a tablet. I might not need to buy a full-on laptop, and I can still get a huge amount of work done in the field that starts to disrupt other price categories. You're paying a premium because I would also expect that something with the Surface name is built using the highest premium materials. Like, I want, if it's a Surface, it better have like injection molded magnesium frame, and it better have like the highest quality aluminum components and that top tier build, and it's not going to be made out of glass on the back of the phone. I expect that the camera is going to be pretty good, coming from the company that kind of gutted Nokia back in the day during the PureView days and Windows Phone. All of those things together, that argument at $1,500 isn't terrible. In fact, the argument at $2,000, if it's a 5G connected device with a ton of storage, is pricey, but it's not awful, especially if I can count on good aftermarket support, good updates, and repairability. But that's all the unknown stuff. Like, we have no idea if these hinges are going to be in any way serviceable or repairable. We have no idea if they're going to be able to solve for, a dust or water ingress that the Galaxy Fold absolutely can't survive. There are a ton of unknowns, and we have a year before we get to see this here. But if this is a product that can start to disrupt my need for a tablet and a laptop, an expensive price tag has to be balanced against that additional use. So I think that's one of the reasons why I'm getting so excited about this. The fact that there's a basic desktop mode, if Microsoft puts a Windows 10 launcher on that desktop mode, that's huge. That's like proper competition against DeX and Huawei's desktop mode. And that would very, very quickly light a fire under people that might be able to get a lot more use out of a mobile. So yeah, I'm very excited. Let me see what some of these other comments are. Let's see. Fat Produce. The tech for the hinge isn't any different from most other 2-in-1 Windows laptops, so it could be less expensive just for the aspect of that hardware design. So Microsoft is making noise. This hinge seems to borrow some of the same design language as like the clockwork and the gear hinge that we see on Lenovo products, like some of the Yogas. And there is something, because I believe both halves of the Duo will have batteries. So there's got to be a lot of wiring and communication that goes between those two units. But I think where you actually run into cost savings is you're not trying to make a bendy screen. By not making the bendy screen, I think the device becomes more durable and less expensive in one straight shot. From 20 miles. Honestly, if I could use one device, I'd be interested. I would love to just take the Duo to class, connect my wireless earbuds to listen to music, and take a call if needed, and have enough real estate to just bring that instead of multiple bulky devices. I don't travel much with laptops anymore. I covered all of my daily vlogs for CES and Computex right out of my phone. What I would like is if I'm going to travel with some type of laptop-y form factor is that it's just a dumb shell for my phone. And that my phone is still doing all of the processing and all of the computing. But you guys have heard me ramble on about that before. Goran Petrovic, nothing beats the great PC. So I've got my workstation. This is where I do a ton of my editing, but I think my production is now roughly 70-30. Where 70% of my video editing and rendering is done on my awesome, super powerful workstation, and then 30% of it's being done directly from the phone. So if you caught my fuel fluid e-bike video, all done on my phone. If you caught the portable mic preamp that I just reviewed, the new Comica, so it's a mic preamp that plugs directly into your phone, 4K, 60 frames per second here in the office, all of it shot, all of the audio captured directly on the phone, all of it edited, transitions. I think it's one of the better looking office videos that I've done from my phone. All of it done on the V50. Every bit of it. But if I hadn't said anything, I don't know that people would have necessarily noticed as readily that one 4K 60 frame per second video was from a Panasonic and another 4K 60 frame per second video was from my LG. From Fat Produce, with 5G and better Wi-Fi, a 2-screen device would be great for using in conjunction with something into your PC. I think logging into your PC to get work done you can't do on your phone easily when you're away from your main workstation. And that's another thing too. Like we were just talking about with game consoles. That larger screen real estate, being able to log in to a PC. Microsoft's tools for that have been shaky, like remote desktop control, all the way back to Windows XP not being the easiest or the most stable solution. But we're seeing how Microsoft is trying to disrupt the normal phone PC relationship. Their partnership with Samsung, where you can plug your phone in on top of a Windows machine and it can use DeX on top of another computer, or the Microsoft Companion app is now going to be getting better support for notifications and for moving phone calls between phone and PC and stuff like that is going to be really helpful. It's just funny, like Google doesn't quite have enough of the ecosystem on their own, and Microsoft doesn't quite have enough of the ecosystem on their own to fully get all of those pieces working. It's like those two they kind of need each other right now, so that consumers have like the full package of services fluidity, where I start doing something on a phone and then I move it over to a laptop or I move it over to a desktop is kind of the glowing, shining future we've always wanted. Matt Tyler has absolutely hijacked the live chat for a mini review. So I think that's about as good a place as any to start wrapping this all up. Unless there are any other questions or comments or things that I'm working on, but to tease what's going to be coming down the channel. Let me get another drink of water here. Oh man. So, like I said, this morning I woke up early so I could shoot it ahead of time before I blew my voice out. But I do have the finished review shot. I just need to do the editing and put in all the B-roll, but we're going to be talking about V50, the sleeper monster phone of the year. My favorite phone of 2019. Just a shame how it's kind of struggling in this market because of a number of business decisions, but we're going to talk about that. I'm going to be putting out a review on the Creative Outlier Gold this afternoon, so some true wireless earbuds with insane battery life. I mean, what Creative is doing is absolutely incredible for making long-lived true wireless earbuds. Where is... Oh, it's way back there. Like, you can kind of see it out of focus right where my thumb is. That is a phenomenal Audio-Technica wireless gaming headset. And not only... I'm seriously considering not only doing a review of this headset, and I'm obviously going to review it, but I kind of want to put it up against my Sennheiser GSP, which is like $100 more expensive. Again, wireless audio, and when you're not leaning on Bluetooth, has gotten stonkingly good. And next week, we should start digging in, hopefully, to Google announcements, where we should start seeing Stadia, Pixel 4. Excuse me. There's going to be a lot coming up. I'm actually going to be writing just a little mini editorial on the Patreon, one of the production diaries. Last year, I really wanted to make sure that I was spending some time with an iPhone. I skipped the iPhone 10 because I was at Pocket Now and they wanted me to run coverage on the iPhone 8. So I didn't get to spend any time with the iPhone 10. I felt like the iPhone 10s was the important phone for me to spend a little time with and review. And that kind of meant skipping the Pixel 3. Just how you wrap up coverage at the end of the year. I'm doing this all by myself. I only have so much budget that I can throw at all these different phones. And this year, I feel like it's important to flip that. So instead of covering the iPhone 11 Pro aggressively, like buying my own and doing a whole bunch of coverage on that, it's time for me to catch back up on a Pixel. So like I said earlier in this podcast, I don't think any of us are really that excited for Google's keynote, but there is some really interesting stuff that's already been leaked, and I want to see how it all fits together on a product when it's actually in my hand and not just rumors and leaks and speculation and all that other stuff. Live transcription, radar-controlled air gestures. There's a lot that could be the first steps away from how we normally hold and interact with our phones. That transcription, one of the things that I want to try is maybe this could be the solution for fixing my subtitles on YouTube. I have a Pixel just recording as I do these live streams, and then I've got a transcription ready to go and upload to YouTube, which then can be regionalized. Like I can run it through a translator app and see like, is this giving me reasonably good subtitles for other markets? Because only about a quarter of my viewership is in the United States. I don't have good resources to translate this discussion to other markets. If a Pixel 4 can help me out even a little there, that phone suddenly becomes much more valuable to me in what it's going to be capable of. But we're going to have I'm going to have a camera video out for the V50. I'm going to have a camera video out for the OnePlus 7T. I'm going to try and sneak it in. It might not get done this week, but I want to return to the Axon 7. I finally got another Axon 7. The Axon 7 is back in my collection, and I want to show like this is what a good audio phone should resemble in 2019. Instead, we're doing weird mismatched speakers and we're getting rid of headphone jacks. And here was a phone that retailed for $400 in 2016, which absolutely destroys every phone out today except for an LG. And maybe an ROG. I don't know. Matt Tyler's going to have to tell me if the audio is good on his ROG. But lots of stuff coming down. Oh, and my wife. I shot with my wife to do a follow-up on the Mi Audio in-ear monitors. So I use Mi Audios. These are the MX3 Pro. And I have custom molded tips. These are biologically designed to fit my ears. We finally got my wife's earbuds all set up. She's got custom molds now. She is not an audio engineer. She is not an audio producer, but we shot the interview. Her experience is using them for the very, very first time. So I'm going to have that cut up this week too. Tons of stuff coming out. Last week was a catch-up week. This week is a catch-up week, and I've got to get ahead because Pixel 4 is right around the corner. And there are a couple other things wrapping up the end of the year that I still want to talk about. If they're Asus, if the new ZTE, there's another Axon phone out that you can technically buy in the United States. I got a lot to cover. So, folks, thanks so much for tuning in. This was an incredible live chat. I saw a few folks, popping in from Mixer and from Periscope. Thanks so much for tuning in, no matter where you caught this live stream. But again, just these conversations every week are kind of what helps fuel my week of production, just knowing there are other fun people to chat technology with. All of the links for the topics we talked about will be in the show notes when the blog post goes live on SomeGadgetGuy.com. Extending just another shout out, super huge thanks to Charlie Spirit Song, Body Yee on Twitter, I think, who has been putting time codes into the podcasts when they go up on YouTube. Hugely helpful for me to get that in there. DKRY on Mixer. Yeah, I knew I saw someone in there. And then, of course, as always, let's continue these conversations off of the podcast. Let's continue them on social media, in comments, and share these discussions where they're appropriate. If that's using a subreddit like Glowing Rectangles or just hitting me up on the socials, you can find me around the rest of the internet at SomeGadgetGuy on the Twitters and the Twitch, and kind of on the Facebooks and the Instagrams and the YouTubes and all the other places where we're going to interact. But engage. Let's have real conversations. Let's not just go like, oh, but my phone's the best because that's the phone I spent money on. Tech is way more fun when we dig in. So, folks, I want you to have a fantastic week. I want you to do awesome with your technology. I want you to be awesome with your technology. And I'll catch you back here next Monday morning for another SGGQA podcast, another Monday morning tech chat show. Take care. Be well. I love you all.